when it comes to just having to focus on one thing, and I don't know, like people out there legitimately want to make the best version of the most simplest thing. I just know that, for instance, with this A, B, and potentially C, or this C is a for sure thing. Is there a for sure C or not?
There's something else.
Okay.
So yes,
theoretically,
but how many more? It's hard to know for sure. Yeah.
But does this really explain the whole talk for enhancer, and then there's the bells line and all this other stuff? Is that really kind of have any relation to that? Is that what we're talking about now?
I think it's possible that some of these genes are responsible for why some desert ghosts tend to be more yellow, and maybe why some of them would tend to be more gray as adults. Like some of the original ones from Nerd and the Bells, I remember, were extremely like nice like steel gray as an adult. And I see some of them getting that way still, but not so much anymore in my collection. So I think there's some probably aspects to there to make one version look different than another. A little bit of the variation there, if that makes sense. And also, I don't know if you can pull it up somewhere, our chart that shows our results, because it really shows why that they believe so strongly there's a C gene involved.
Can I ask you something about that C gene? Could it have anything to do with the cryptic gene? Because I thought some of the early DGs were throwing cryptic stuff. Could we be picking up on that gene right now, but they don't have a test for it yet?
I don't think so. Personally,
Nope.
I don't see any connection there. I'm not seeing
the reason that I would say no is that we know that cryptic is allelic with clown, right? And they do have a test for clown. So while they don't have the mutation for cryptic, I would think it would be on that same, I don't really know how the tests work like in that regard, but I would think if they're looking at that area of the gene, then they would be able to see the spike of the PCR test.
Because it's on the same allele as the clown.
Right, exactly.
So, and that would have an exact spike or just a very similar spike on the chart? That
is a Benson moral question.
Right.
Who reads the test?
I mean, do you think after he like became this rare genetic guy, he changed his name to Benson, or was that his real name? I just feel like that's kind of like a discover, like almost like a I don't know, am I tripping? Benson. How many Bensons have you ever met out there? It's just kind of a unique, like, cool name. I feel like Benjamin Franklin type shit. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you guys.
Not forgettable.
Yeah.
Benson. Continue though, Summer. I didn't mean to cut you off, Summer. Continue, please.
No, I was just going to ask, do I click present to share my screen? Is that what I do?
Yeah, so you're going to hit present, and then you're going to go ahead and hit share screen, and then click, and then you'll be able to see the window from there.
Perfect.
Summer has full access to my StreamYard and could like hack me. She could do whatever she wants right now. It's so bad.
Okay, so this might be really tiny, guys, and I apologize if it is, but this is where this is kind of our spreadsheet that we go back and forth with Rare Genetics on. So this is like full disclosure here. This is all of our results. And then over on the side, you can see we have all these notes where like things that maybe were questionable or didn't really make sense. We've kind of gone back and forth and discussed with people or with Ben, like given him more information, followed up on things. But yeah, I mean, you can see the results here. We have all of these animals on this spreadsheet. We've tested 78. Some of them were controls just to make sure that we weren't getting flags when we shouldn't be. And then, yeah, you can see here was what we visually had identified the animal as, and then the actual genetic makeup. So this kind of goes to show how an animal like this line right here, 13, could be het and not visually represent, but then another animal right here could be het and visually represent as DG. And so getting those results multiple times is what kind of clued Ben into the idea that there's got to be a third gene at play here, because that would be the only explanation for why sometimes these snakes are showing visually that they're desert ghosts and other times they're not.
Yeah, so you have snakes that they're identically on A and B, identical snakes, and some are visual DG, and the same identical genetic on A and B will sometimes just be a non-visual. And so there's something else that is triggering it to be visual or not with exactly the same genetic makeup in the animal.
Mm-hmm. Right, and
Go ahead, Summer.
I was just going to say, what's interesting to note is, the more that we get this data, which is why it's so interesting and why there's just still so much learning to be done, is that now I'm starting to go back on the spreadsheet and look at not just the parents, but look at the grandparents and see if I can kind of try to deduce like whether or not this animal would have been possible for it to be like a homozygous animal or heterozygous for both, and see if that is playing a role in what the visual outcome is. Like here, you can see that these two are both het-hets that didn't visually represent. They're from het-to-het pairings, or a het to visual pairing. And then these are also from a het to a visual pairing. So there's got to be something else, that third gene, I think, that we're not accounting for, that's playing a role into whether or not they're presenting as visual DG.
Can I share a concern?
Yeah.
Like, this is all informative, right? But you got to admit that even people who are really tapped into this kind of stuff have to sit and think about this. So you can only imagine the new person coming in looking at this like, holy crap. And we don't want to scare those people off, obviously, right? But in more simpler terms, my concern is like someone, okay, the someone out there saying, well, you know what, if this is the case, I feel like my DG is this, and I'm going to price it at this. And I know that person DG is not as good as looking as mine. So that doesn't make sense, right? So if that's the case and people start pricing stuff differently because they think they have A over B or whatever, then like, and legitimately, if enough people do that, they're going to want information like this. Like, they're going to want testing. They're going to want like all this difficult stuff. And that could be a pain in the ass, or I don't know. Excuse me. Excuse me, French.
Well, I think it's all hypothetical. And I think I see it as, in terms of like me personally, I think I see it as a positive in the sense that it's going to enable people to put a higher value on animals that have a higher value because they have more genetic potential to produce more visual offspring. And yes, it might, I mean, it's going to require like, it could like maybe price people out or something, but that's the case with anything in the ball python industry, really. I mean, there's going to be a certain point where you get to a level where you have to have the right level of investment in order to take part at that level. So
I mean, how many people that are even producing DG clowns just refer to Justin's prices anyways, or even Bob's prices, whoever has that product? A lot of people just refer to those prices. Am I right or wrong?
Probably, yeah. They probably. I mean, they should. They should always look and see what other people are in the market, and when they're trying to price. That's what we do. We do it as well. We always try. We can't just be pie in the sky. We think, well, what do other people have similar animals for, and we'll work off that from that basis. Here's the reality: is we've had genetic testing now on a lot of the common genes for about a year, approximately. Clown, pied, and we've still seen that most people aren't going through that process on animals they're going to sell. We've seen most people who go through the process of getting the test done, from what I've seen, what I've talked to, only on their personal animals, that it makes a personal difference to them if it proves out or not, like their holdbacks. And so I just don't see that this being even more complicated is going to have a rush of people running out there to say, I'm not going to sell my DGs until I get them tested, when they won't even test a 66% het clown half the time.
I mean, that's true.
Comment that you made a moment ago from the video where it said making a higher percentage of DGs by knowing this information. So how does it play out that you're getting a higher percentage? If everybody already knows, don't answer the question. And other than that, when it comes to that higher percentage, are those hets with the polygene that look visual but aren't actually visual? Like, how are you getting more from het-to-het breeding? Like, what is that larger percentage thing fall?
Well, so if you have like a homozygous, double homozygous animal, and you breed that to a heterozygous, you're going to have a higher percentage of visual offspring than if you bred a het-het to a het-het. So you can think about it similar to like so a lot of people were asking, I saw in the comments, like, this is too confusing. Like, it's hard to understand. How can you dumb it down? You can kind of think about it like a double recessive, if we all understand that. Like, we think about like a DG clown, right? If you breed a visual DG clown, homozygous to a double het DG clown, you're going to have a better chance at getting visual DG clowns out of that than if you bred double het to double het. It works the same way.
Okay, we found that to be in our pairings too. Whenever we're doing head-to-head on the DG side, historically we've taken on the nose a lot more than we should have. And again, I just took it as just taking my lumps is how it goes. As soon as we finally got a visual, we started using that and we forgot all about it, you know. But you experience it again when you go on the multi-recessives. Like when we're trying to make this past 2 years, when we tried to make the Xanthic DG clowns, right? Those were head to head on the DG side. And we just got smacked on DG odds from head to head. Finally, we got the visual, right? And that's going to update it. And then we have another male that we used pretty extensively this year. And looking back at the odds after getting this information, we never would have looked at it without the information. Looking back at the odds, this particular DG clown male produced 70 to 80% desert ghosts every time we bred it to a head, because it's homozygous for at A and B locations.
So with everybody running around with fear about the price coming down, wouldn't it be the opposite if it makes it, harder to do anything, especially when you get to that point of the hobby where you're going for triple het to triple het with DG on both sides on the head? So it should be worth more, if not the same. It doesn't really change anything, right?
If people don't test, it shouldn't change anything. If people do test, theoretically, they could make some of their animals more valuable or less valuable based on what the tests show. But I think the vast majority of this hobby will settle into, hey, this has been working for us and we're going to keep doing it this way. That's my personal opinion. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to firstly, for anything I keep back, I'm going to pick the one that has the highest genetics. I'm going to actually test them. I'm going to do this. And I'll test anything that is high enough end that the customer is really going to care. But, desert ghosts are not that expensive anymore. That's the reality of their amazing mutation, and they're, for relatively base genes, simpler stuff, they're very affordable. And I just don't think a lot of people would say that the customers at that level care to know exactly where their DGs hits on the testing scale.
Now, more affordable is a good thing, but DG will still be a pinnacle gene that will make that snake expensive at some point. Obviously, it all depends what you put in it. But I don't know. I do feel like I want to step back for a little bit. No disrespect. You guys want to see some magic? Wants to see some magic.
Hey, everybody.
Mark, how's it going?
Good. How are you? How's Georgia?
Good. Yeah, I'm in Idaho.
I hope. Oh, are you? Well, you don't have
just
any,
for a week though.
You have any smoke over there?
No.
We had a bad day yesterday. It was thick. Yeah. But it doesn't seem to bother the snakes or the rats and mice too much.
Good.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
So, Mark, what do you got for us, buddy?
Humbled to be here. Where'd MJ go?
He's not coming back.
Listen. I was about to jump in and say, start talking about DG, Mark, please hurry up. But let's go. We want to hear from you, bud.
So, I'm just kind of hearing about all this, and I've been doing DG I look back on my records. The first clutches of DG I did were in 2013. I think that gene has been in existence. I want to say since the early 2000s. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. I think John Carlson said he discovered it in California around like 93 or 96, and then he sold it to the Bells. So the original one would have been mid-90s.
John did?
John Carlson said that he undiscovered that animal in California.
That's better. Wow. I did not even know that. I'm good friends with John. I'll talk to him about that. But I remember seeing that snake, the desert ghost, on the Bell's table.